Okay, you could begin.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Our group presentation today is Being in Communities, and the members of our group are myself, Natasha Tofa Budram, Jamal Reed, and Terry Singh. We do hope you enjoy our presentation today. So, we're going to touch on the importance of community. And next slide, please. What is a community? So, a community could be any group of people that come together for a purpose. Examples would be such as a neighborhood, an office, a class, or a city that is currently experiencing a natural disaster or any sort of event that would bring persons together to form a community. Communities continually participate in conversations about the questions of who are we and what matters, according to Wheatley and Kellner Rogers, 1998. So, class, I'm pretty sure most of us can identify this person, a person of leadership who has found a place in history. Many of us would have known her from growing up. Many of us who would have came after her time would have read about her. Her name is Mother Teresa, and she has had an impact on leadership and community in the sense that she has managed to become um, someone who fought for poverty and children suffering in India. She was a nun, a Catholic nun. After her dad died at the age of 8, um, at 12 years old, she had the calling to um, to help. She saw that after the 1943 Bengal famine, it killed 2.1 million people in India, and that was a life-changing moment for her. She went out into the communities. She moved into the slums and she faced hunger, poverty, and homelessness. And even though she had no equipment, she lacked equipment and supplies, she found a way to open schools for poor children, teaching them to read and write using sticks in the dirt. That was her first school. Her efforts, however, didn't go unnoticed because a new community soon formed around her. She opened hospices, clinics, and orphanages throughout India. And within a few years, her mission went global. So she founded what is known as, how many of you have heard about missionaries of charity? Nobody? Okay. Well, they eventually went on to run over 500 missions worldwide. Right? She went on to help not only the orphans, but those afflicted by addiction, poverty, disability, old age, and even disaster around the world. Her leadership was so remarkable in that she was managed to cut across conflicts and even enemy lines in a 1982 siege in Beirut. She even managed to broker a temporary ceasefire between the Israeli army and the Palestinian guerrillas and managed to rescue 37 children trapped in a frontline hospital. She traveled through the war zones alongside Red Cross workers and evacuated patients. She passed away, guys, in 1997, but the community that she has founded continues to live on to this day, spreading Mother Teresa's vision and serving those in need. Next slide, please. So, essential aspects of relational leadership, they often include being a believer in and recognizing the worth of the community and in sustaining and developing this community, right? This leads us to understand that it's very necessary for competent leaders to ensure that the community strives to become better, right? While it provides the environment that supports both individual and group growth. Next, please. So Taking care of the community is a leadership requirement. We would have seen that being displayed with Mother Teresa as well in her works. And building aptitude within the building and the revamping of the community as well in adapting to change. There were wars, there were famines, there would have been disasters, there would have been different occurrences over time in which her community she managed to revamp and rebuild, right? It's one of the most fundamental qualities that a leader can possess. So understanding also oneself and others alone is not sufficient. We need to understand. Understanding is necessary for the development and the maintenance of the group or the organization's roles and functions. Right? Next, please. So participants' attention in the community and group is drawn to responsibilities, procedures, and a spirit of cooperation when they consider the relationships in that setting to be a community, right? In relational leadership, you are asked to imagine the setting as a healthy community. This creates a whole new set of expectations and standards for how to work well together as a participant in shared leadership. Next, please. So elements of a community. So Gardner, 1990, extends the traditional definitions of a community to refer to effective communities as those that practice these 8 elements. So we have 8 elements of communities which make them effective communities. And the first one is wholeness incorporating diversity. The second is a shared culture. The third is good internal communication. 4 is caring, trust, and teamwork. 5, group maintenance and governance. 6, participation and shared leadership tasks. 7, development of young people or new members. And 8, links with the outside world. Next slide. So wholeness incorporating diversity. Traditional perceptions that everyone has held, well, most people about communities, they have been changing over time. And what would have been viewed as homogeneous groups of members, they have many similarities, such as class, race, or ideologies. But, however, those are still actual communities. It's important to note that different ethnic, cultural, and other forms of diversity are resources that act as essential tools for community building. So it's important to note that diversity lends to the building of true communities through the varied talents, ideas, skill sets, experiences, and views collectively put forward by the members in achieving the community's goals. Community diversity also strengthens a group's resiliency and its ability to face change throughout challenging times. Next, please. A shared culture. The word community also refers to people who share an identity and engage in social interaction, but are not necessarily geographically close. Using terms like the medical community or the spiritual community refers to their shared worldviews and not necessarily their actual everyday interactions. These ideas serve at the center of the community, which develops a harmonious network of connections around these common principles. So association and convention gatherings also, they offer a setting of fostering of ties within these communities that have a shared culture. Next, please. Good internal communication. Within an organization, good internal communication is a comprehensive process. In order to accomplish the objectives of the organization, it ensures that information is distributed effectively, laterally, and up and down communication. So we have within teams now, as times are changing, modern forms of communication, we have electronic networks, we have sites like LinkedIn, we have blogs, message boards, online discussion groups. They're connecting people from all over the world into niche communities where brains can converge. Next, please. Caring, trust, and teamwork. Communities realize they're a collective group of people who achieve their objectives through trust, cooperation, and teamwork. So we see that teamwork necessitates decision-making procedures, communication strategies, and community members' commitment to some level of participation, as we would have seen in our group projects that we are presenting for class currently, right? So 5, group maintenance and governance. Those that have a common identity and engage with one another, but are not necessarily physically close by, are also referred to as communities. Many members of these communities do manage to get together and share ideas. A community is more than just a place where people interact. It's also about attitudes of connection and commitment that keep relationships and purpose going. So we must make sure that all stakeholders are well informed on the organizational plans, activities, the history, and the accomplishments in order to practice good governance. So relational leadership now is all about sharing that commitment to the community. Next, please. Number 6, participation and shared leadership tasks. So all humans, all of us, we desire to establish relationships with other people at some point in our lives, right? We are social animals. Effective communities are those that are inclusive, empowering, and where purposeful change is being achieved through moral and cooperative procedures. So better organizational performance results from shared leadership, right? We need transparency, promoting autonomy, and being receptive to other people's views. And they all help to establish shared leadership. So in environments that emphasize these components of the community, right, relational leadership thrives. Next, please. Development of young people or new members. So through working together, community members develop a shared culture that is also concerned about welcoming new community members as part of building an effective community. The recognition that we are not solitary, but are in constant and dynamic interactions with our broader environment, while combining these facets of community, is an awareness of the shared culture and of the spirit of community that allows for making possible many other relational processes. And as such, the community grows, right? Next, please. Links with the outside world. Without communicating, you might still have a feeling of community and identification. And this could happen, for instance, if you're a fervent environmentalist or whatever you may be passionate about, you can identify strongly with various groups, Nature Friends, Greenpeace, or even local groups such as Fishermen and Friends of the Sea. You know, once you have a passion for something like that, you identify with that. You see them on social media, you see them on the news. If you care about different things like poverty, like Mother Teresa had was very fervent about poverty, and she wanted to assist with the same global concerts or even locally fundraiser concerts to, right, that try to have an impact or make a change. It will make you feel a feeling of community. So if you perform community service centered on abused children and all these things, you will be troubled by recent tragedies. And we have had recent tragedies of children being victims of crime and shootings in Trinidad. These are things that will will make you feel a link with the outside world or what is going on in your country, even or out there, that makes you passionate as part of the community that empathizes with or wants change for what is going on, you know. Next slide, please. So I will pass you on now to Terry.
Hi, everybody. I will be talking about a common center in community now. So let's talk about the idea of a common center in community. So a common misconception that people have about communities is that all members will have the exact same opinions, ideas, and behaviors, but this is not true. The reality is that in an actual community, all members will have different mindsets, opinions, and natures. In order for a community to work together towards their shared goal, aka their common center or purpose, They need to build an inclusive environment that welcomes all members. And to build this environment, the members need to be open to listening to different opinions. And this doesn't mean that you always have to give up your personal issues or peace to create a false sense of peace, but rather that you should try to stay committed to the greater values of your community and the greater common purpose or common cause or center that you're trying to achieve or work towards. Now I'm going to discuss what communities of practice are. A community of practice is defined by communityofpractice.ca as a group of people who share a common concern, a set of problems, or an interest in a topic, and who come together to fulfill both individual and group goals. And there are three characteristics of a community of practice. There is the domain. Community members all have a shared domain of interest that distinguishes them from others. And it's the shared domain that creates a common ground and inspires members to participate. And this guides their learning and gives them meaning to their actions. Then you have the second characteristic, community. Community members pursue this shared domain of interest through, through activities such as discussions, sharing information, and problem solving and building relationships. And the social networks formed in these communities of practice because of these activities are critical to accomplishing personal goals of the members. Then we have practice, the last characteristic. Community members are active practitioners of their domain of interest, and this leads them to developing a shared repertoire of ideas or reservoir of ideas and resources which can be used in their practices. Some examples of community of practice are, for example, a committee or a student council, a religious group, or an organization. Now, how can COPs or communities of practice best function to fully engage their community members? The policies, norms, behaviors, and expectations put in place can encourage or inhibit participation from members. So, for example, in an office culture that involves employees in the important processes related to their jobs, like decision making or coming up with suggestions for certain problems, in an office culture that rewards their involvement, promotes their personal development, allows employees to openly celebrate each other's successes, and can also trust each other, can create a welcoming environment for the community. Not all members of a community of practice, however, will be willing to share and uphold the values of the community, however. Communities will sometimes act to remove members for this reason. So some examples of these sort of members include a student who would constantly pull false fire alarms in their school, which could potentially result in them being perhaps suspended, or maybe even a serious case, like maybe even expelled. Or perhaps a lab team member who sabotages other teams' experiments, which could potentially cause them to get kicked out of their own team. Perhaps there might even be a serious instance in which they bring their whole team down by getting them kicked out or disqualified from something. Every individual belongs to several communities of practice, but to varying degrees of centrality or involvement. So, for example, if you devote all of your time to your job and family, you wouldn't be able to devote as much time to, say, the community of your place of worship. It's pretty much impossible for you to be constantly and fully engaged in all of the communities that you're a part of. Aside from these values, these communities also thrive on something called social reciprocity. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, which is a social and philanthropic concept that defines how people indirectly reciprocate charitable acts, as according to Shaker and Williams. Here is an example of social reciprocity in action as taken from, which was created by Urich in 1998. Chris helps Mary move her refrigerator, and Mary repays that kindness, not necessarily by helping Chris back, but by helping her floor mate Danny put up flyers in the hall. Danny pays Mary back when picking up the trash that is spilled out of the trash can at the end of the hall. So as you can see here, they are doing acts of kindness. They're helping each other out, not necessarily by paying each other directly back, but by maybe helping somebody else in the process. Now, Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, or I should probably just say Gandhi, has listed 8 reflections on what causes human violence. So we start with wealth without work. This is basically the practice of gaining something for nothing. You put no work or effort into getting something, and then you still get what you want without the effort or the satisfaction of working for it. Then there's pleasure without conscience. This is the gratification. This is instant gratification without responsibilities to others. You satisfy your needs and your pleasures without taking into consideration how other people could potentially be harmed in that process. Then there is knowledge without character, intellectual knowledge without morals. And then there's commerce without morality, conducting business without knowing what's right or wrong. Then we have sciences without humanity. This is technological advancement without understanding its coincidences. Then there's worship without sacrifice, as in you're being active in a religion without sacrificing for others. You might be a part of a religious community or a religious church or any place of worship, but you aren't putting in the work to sacrifice for yourself and others in order to fully understand the teachings of your religion. Then you have politics without principles. Politics without honesty and truth can lead to chaos and violence and corruption. Rights without responsibilities is the last one, and this one was added in later by his grandson, Arun Gandhi. This is basically about having the rights to freely do what you want, but in doing so, you also infringe on the rights of others. Now that my section is done, I'll be passing you on to Jamal.
Hi, good afternoon. We're doing the development of communities. Next slide, please. All right. Contrary to popular belief, main communities don't spontaneously combust and become a powerful flame due to its members starting to exist within that space. So the glory of it all, right? It isn't a community just by having people there, right? An example would be like you join the classroom for the first time, and it feels all nice, or you joined a new group or something, right? There needs to be like a driving will in the minds of the people who are present, right? And this will is referred to as the spirit of community. And everybody here, they need to catch this as like a call. Next slide, please. All right, the spirit of community is the result that stems from its members interacting with each other, looking out for each other, praising each other, having conflict between each other, and working towards a community goal or goals. It is an outward and inward act that roots itself in the basis of advancement and enjoyment when working together amongst kindred folk or non-kindred folk. Next slide. So we mentioned outward, right, and an inward act. So the outward act, it refers to like personal exertion to anything pertaining to the development of said group. And the inward act, next slide, this deals with personal reflection, like how you can improve what the group, what's going on with the group. You're mindful towards it all. And this brings us to the main 4 steps of developing a community. Next slide. The first step is pseudo community. Then we have chaos, realization, and authentic community. Next slide. All right. A pseudo community is when people are just existing amongst each other and all seems to be well when it comes to typical interactions. Despite this fact of seeming to be a suitable community by the untrained eye, it is actually underdeveloped. In layman's terms, pseudo community is when no one wants to step on each other's toes. However, a true community draws a hefty portion of its bread from conflict resolving. All right, next line. Chaos. All right, chaos is, as this picture kind of hint, and you could probably think in your head. Like, say you join the WhatsApp group to do a group project, and people are clashing, and they don't like each other, right? But this is actually a very key process of it all, right? This is when you step on people's toes, right? They are varying opinions, perspectives, and beliefs which clash when the group has to come to the final say with regards in which direction the community should improve in. In the second stage of building a community, kindred folk form parties against each other. Folk who do not have a backbone to stand up and fight for their opinions, and folks who dogmatically and arbitrarily figure it isn't worth the hassle, tend to retreat and forfeit the potential opportunity of a power play which can potentially shape the community. This could be dangerous as the people with the loudest bark do not always tend to have the stronger bite, and the community could actually wind up going towards a non-profitable venture. People need to realize that there is nothing like a good fight. Locking horns and butting heads is very profitable, as this can lead to one particular path that one could take when faced with the next two routes. Right. Next slide. All right, and the two routes are organization and emptiness. All right, organization is the equivalent of you putting a band-aid on the problem. All right, you haven't really healed the issue. All right, the issue of the fighting is not dealt with. The newly implemented system simply converted the issue into a more manageable state. All right, like say you have like clashing debates, it will turn into a majority vote. Right, is an example. Right, as you could probably see, the main issue of having different opinions is still present. Right, and emptiness. Emptiness is when the group members deeply convey their intent towards each other while purposefully listening to each other. Walls are taken down and hearts are laid bare to make way for true communication. Next slide. Realization. This is the third phase. Right? The people present realize that all the boundaries and barriers which deal with preconceived notions, personal feelings, motives, etc., keep people from really understanding each other. Right? And all of this, it gives birth to an authentic community. At this stage, everyone pretty much knows each other. The group still has conflict, but the decision-making process is more defined and considerate. The community at this point in time makes better decisions overall. One could argue and say that communities that reach this state will get lax and suffer due to it, but one could respond and say that everyone knows that everything can be subject to external change. These external changes in the temperature of the community can come in the form of new members or external problems. Right? Next slide. All right, to combat this, all right, there are 7 guidelines that one should implement. Number 1, be committed to each other. 2, be mindful towards each other. 3, be unconditionally accepting. 4, be concerned for yourself and others. 5, be understanding. 6, be ethical. 7, be peaceful. Do not be perverse. All right. I'm sure everyone could agree that these 7 points are actually very wholesome. It's the best way that I can think about. All right, and this brings us to college communities. All right, college communities tend to not actually have a true sense of community. The true sense of community in this case tends to lie within the segmented communities that are present within that community. Next slide. All right. Different groups of students may not get along with a particular group, which can then give birth to hostility, disdain, and superiority. But within these kindred groups, a community is actually thriving because they get along and they know each other, right? And they work together. All right, next slide. Within the college community, there can be either 2 sub-communities. One that revolves itself around nurturing academic qualities, while the other revolves itself around supplying an avenue for social interaction. One should bear in mind, though, that these two subgroups, even though they vary in agenda, can give birth to the beautiful personal qualities that can help mold individuals into better versions of themselves. All right. For social interaction, we could think about sports groups or book clubs. Right. One can be refined in terms of physical prowess with a sports group, while knowledge overall can be improved, right, when it comes to experiencing various avenues of creativity, right, with the latter, with the book clubs. Right. For the agenda of nurturing academics, one can think about study groups or subject groups. In this case, student development towards a certain niche can be gained. Within these groups, there are guidelines in place which are innately morally sound, and these are responsibility, expectations, and obligations. Next slide. Oh, hold on, go back. I forgot something else supposed to explain. I apologize. All right. If one person, right, if you were to take a step back and look at everything, like how you have all these guidelines which are set in place in these sub-communities, like the book clubs, the sport clubs, like how you improve as an individual, the nurturing of the academics, the basic subjects. Right, you can see that it builds upon itself overall. Like there's a holistic building up of the student, right? And this spills over into all the other communities that the student is a part of, not just the community of the college, right? And it grows as the individual continues to experience the life. And that's it. Next slide. Thank you.
And that was the end of our presentation. Thank you for watching. And here are just some references, well, our references that were used for the making of the presentation. And that is it.
Thank you, guys.
Sorry if this takes a little bit of time and some kind of laggy, but yeah.